Let's talk about your career in baseball. Over 22 seasons, and these numbers are astonishing. You hit 696 home runs, you won 3 Most Valuable Player awards, and you were a 14-time All-Star. But when you became eligible for the Hall of Fame this year, your name appeared on 34.3% of the ballots, and you need 75% to get in. Alex, how do you explain it?
Well, that's on me. You know, I've made mistakes. I've talked about them. I served the longest suspension in Major League Baseball history
for taking performance-enhancing drugs.
And it was the most embarrassing moment of my career. And it was a mistake that I've now forgiven myself, but it took me a while. And Chris, it took a lot of turning the lens inward and doing a lot of therapy and understanding some of the mistakes and why I was making them, how it ties into my childhood. But when I think about those mistakes, is the biggest gift and the biggest curse of my life. I look at that and I think about that every single day that I did that to myself. And I hope that because of that mistake, the lesson is I get to be a better father, a better partner, a better friend, a better son, and hopefully other players can learn from my mistakes.
To the degree you feel comfortable sharing, you say that's on me and your childhood and therapy. I mean, help us understand, because you know, you're such a gifted athlete, you were such a skilled and accomplished athlete, and you say, why on earth would Alex Rodriguez ever feel he had to cheat? And that's my question.
Yeah,
why?
It's a great question, Chris, and I think about, and at some point, if I ever write a book or ever do a documentary, I will get into it deeper and deeper. Here's what I would say is surrounding yourself with the best people that are going to keep you accountable is very important. The other part is, and this is not an excuse, my father leaving at 10 I had a big void in my life. You know, I also had from age 15, when they said I was going to be the best player in the country at 15, to the age of 25, I had 2 coaches. That was Rich Hoffman, my high school coach, and Lou Piniella in Seattle. And Chris, I lament, I wish I had an extra 3 years with both of them, because both of them were mentors and took a little bit of a father figure. And sometimes you need a good kick in the ass. And I got it at 38 when finally Major League Baseball said, you know what, you're suspended for a year. Baseball is a game that has a very rigid, judgmental rules. Football and basketball, there's a way out where you can still have a happy ending. There is no happy ending in baseball, and that's sad.
Do you feel that you didn't have a happy ending?
I think that my happy ending was because I did the work in therapy, is because I understood my mistake, and I've taken full responsibility for it. And in a strange way, Chris, serving a year suspension, that cost me over $40 million. And more importantly, I lost a lot of pride and shame. And the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life was face my daughters, Natasha and Ella, and tell them this is the mistake that Daddy made. And here are the lessons that I learned. And I thought it was important as a father to have that moment, Chris, because I grew up getting kind of bullshitted a little bit, and I don't want my daughters to ever feel like they have to BS me, because you got to deal with the truth. The earlier, the better.
You say that you think baseball is more rigid than football and basketball, pro basketball, in the sense that you make a mistake, you can't sort of work your way through it nearly as easily. Why do you think that is?
It's a wrap. You make a mistake is one and out. And by the way, I want to make it very clear. I'm not criticizing baseball. We knew the rules. I knew the rules when I messed up. I think baseball is set in its ways. So if we're not going to change the league, we have to change the players. And I know they do a lot, but we have to do a better job of even being more proactive, educating players, and building guardrails. But this is a debacle for Major League Baseball. This is a really big, big issue. Here's your brightest star. Think about LeBron James or Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, and they're done at the age of 22. How can baseball compete? I've taken my position. I've been very clear. I'm accountable for all my actions. Now I'm speaking as someone who is madly in love with the game of baseball that is slipping away from us. I do feel that there's an education. I think when you look at my life, Chris, I mentioned when I was 15 years old, and I think Sports Illustrated called me the top player in the country. And at that time, I was Alex Rodriguez. And then somewhere along the way, at 24, I get $252 million contract. And probably in Texas, I lost my way a little bit, and I became A-Rod. And I think after the suspension, I've worked myself through a lot of therapy and a lot of work to Alex Rodriguez. I think.
Wait, it's a timeout. What's the difference between Alex Rodriguez and A-Rod?
I think when you think about it, it's the same difference between Alex Rodriguez, me, pre-suspension and post-suspension. I think pre-suspension, if you asked me what's winning look like, I would have said big contracts, home runs, World Series, nice cars.
Women?
Women. Post-suspension, I look at more the team, building, being a great father, being a son, being a friend, high character, loyalty, all those things. So in my 20s, early 30s, probably not the best. I think I'm going to make a wonderful partner or husband and father post-suspension because of the lessons learned of my biggest mistakes.
You were the #1 pick in the 1970 draft by the Pittsburgh Steelers out of Louisiana Tech. And 2 years later, you were involved in a play that is still considered the greatest play in NFL history. Take a look.
Bradshaw trying to get away. And his pass is broken up by Tatum. Tipped off. Franco Harris has it. And he's over. What?
That is the Immaculate Reception, as it was known for. It will be known forever. A couple of things. You say that was the worst pass you ever threw. Why?
That was a lie. I didn't mean that. It was a play. It was a fourth down play, and I threw the ball and went down on the turf and got hit. Heard the roar of the crowd, and then I got to thinking, wow, that's some kind of throw right there. I knew it was a touchdown, so I'm thinking endorsements, movie deals are going to come my way. This is a big moment, for me. And so I got up and started jogging and places going crazy. And I'm waiting for someone to say, way to go, TB, nice throw. Got none of that.
So nobody was asking you to say where you're going after this game, and you could say Disneyland.
No, none of that. And then after you see all of that, really? So now it's not one of my best throws. Certainly, ended up being my best throw, which is ironic.
How many concussions do you think you suffered over the years?
Oh, I think most athletes, when you ask them that, they'll tell you a concussion to me is being knocked out. So I probably had no more than 6 knocked totally out. I went to a clinic one year, one off season, and got tested brain for 3 days, and come to find out with all the scars on your brain and everything, you've actually had quite a few concussions. So, yeah, I think up until they started changing the rules, players were taking some pretty serious shots to the head.
So let me ask you, Terry, do you think football is too dangerous, especially the head traumas?
No, I would have to say no. It's dangerous. Look, it is a tough sport. You better be pretty courageous and fear no evil, basically. It was something we grew up with. It's something that I love. Being hurt or getting hit is all part of it, and we accept it. And I think that's where we differ from maybe you, Chris, or some other people, is that we accept it. And it's hard for a lot of people to accept it. Now, I don't accept CTE results. I don't accept the brain damage that we're finding. I don't accept the fact that so many of these players can't be diagnosed with CTE until it's too late. I don't think it's too rough. I played it, so obviously I don't think it's too rough. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I was proud of myself, Chris, as a player, as a quarterback, as most quarterbacks I would think are. We have to stand in there and trust a bunch of people around us, or else we just get slammed. But you're always going to be dealing with this. And Chris, if we live 20 more years, you and I do another interview, you're going to ask me that same question again, and I'm going to give you the same answer. No, I'm kind of a gladiator. I enjoyed being in that arena. That's a scary arena to be in.
You know, you have this image, and you're beloved as a good old boy, but you're more complicated than that. You say that you suffered from depression and anxiety for years. You say that you wanted your football career to hurry up and be over with so that you could get off the stage. You say when you won Super Bowls, it was miserable because you felt more pressure to do it again.
Right.
What was going on there?
Right. I never could accept, my wife will tell you this, I'm not good at accepting compliments. I'm not good at winning because winning means I got to do it again, and I know how hard it was to get to win that one time, and the pressure was tearing me apart. It's so hard to win a Super Bowl, and then you have to win another one. And then you don't win for a couple of years and you're old, and then the negative comes in. Then you win again. So it's just like it's not fair. It's just so hard. But that's, it's kind of the lot in life I have and I chose. But I couldn't enjoy it. I don't know why. I did not enjoy playing football because I could not accept it being so serious. It was always, to me, just a game. And I couldn't accept it being so serious. And I couldn't understand people being so cruel and mean with their words. And I didn't enjoy that at all. That's why I like my life better outside of football, because I get to entertain and make people laugh and have a good time. And that's the way I choose to live my life.
You eventually went public with your mental health issues. Here you are.
Right.
Listen, men are the worst. You're right. We think that, we got to be strong for everyone, but mental illness is something that attacks everyone, no matter your size, your pocketbook, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. The wise thing to do for me was I knew I had something wrong with me, and I sought help, medical help.
Do you hear from people who say, well, if Terry Bradshaw, this great quarterback, had these feelings, then there's nothing to be ashamed of?
I don't really say a lot of things, Chris, because when a person, a celebrity, excuse my choice of words there, but that's what I am, we say something like that, a lot of America goes, oh, God, what's he got? What's he promoting? It's like with the cancer. I don't say anything till it was obvious something's wrong with me. I don't want sympathy, empathy, whatever you call it. I don't want any of that. But I felt it was an obligation to share. And the fact that people do come up to me, men do come up to me, lots of them, and thank me for being open and honest, and how it has helped them and has changed their lives, and they have sought help. Now, I realize how important it is to set aside how you feel personally about it and say it, because it does have an impact on people's lives.
How does a guy who's 6'4", lead the league in rebounding?
I wanted to be successful. Basketball, it meant so much to me. I think about my life. I'm from a small town of a couple thousand people. My mom was a maid. My grandmother worked in a meat factory. I grew up in the projects. And all I had to do was be good at basketball. And I was able to change the entire dynamics of my life and my family's life. And I was thinking about that the whole time. I'm like, guys, I don't want to be poor anymore. All I got to do is rebound, and the rest is history. And I was like, I love rebounding. And that's the only reason, like I wanted to make life better for my family, and that was it. I was like, all I gotta do is rebound, go out here and get these rebounds every single night. And it was fun, but that was the main reason. I wanted my life to be better.
Let's do a lightning round. Quick
Sure.
questions, quick answers. Best ever, Michael, LeBron, or Kobe?
Michael. I love LeBron and Kobe, but I played against Michael, so I'm biased.
I don't think you're going wrong
Yeah.
saying Michael anyway. One word or one sentence to describe officiating in the NBA.
Tough. It's a tough job. See, this is what I hate about fans. Of course you get it right looking at 5 replays. You got, in any sport, you got tremendous players moving at warp speed. You got 10 guys, they're moving, running up and down the court. They're gonna miss some. But I don't think any official goes to work and say, let me make a bad call that's gonna change the outcome of a game. But also with replay now, I think it just made their job tougher.
Who has got the best fans?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, let me say this. As far as passion, there is a difference between the East Coast and the West Coast. Boston, Philly, and New York have the most passionate fans. They have the most passionate. Now, it's tough at times to play in those 3 cities, but they have the most passionate fans.
For all of your success, for all of your money, how much does it still bother you that you never won an NBA championship?
It doesn't bother me at all, and I'm not saying that to be politically correct. Like, it's a team game. Nobody wins by themselves. I know it's become, got a bunch of guys on television to say somebody's great except they didn't win the championship. Just for the record, most of those guys never even played. Let's get that out the way. But I don't know when it became an individual sport. Like, yeah, I didn't win the championship. Like, I don't think, I'm not to be confident, I don't think it was my fault we didn't win. I don't think it was my fault.
It's the other guy.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think it was my fault that we didn't win, but I think I did. And Chris, I'll be honest with you. Man, I'm so lucky and blessed in my life. I mean, I did pretty good from a little small town country boy from the projects. I think I did good. Yeah.
I think the most iconic moment in the history of the Duke program, maybe you'll disagree with me, was the 1992 regional final against Kentucky. Overtime, 2.1 seconds left. Duke is down by 1. Grant Hill gets the ball. He throws it 3/4 of the way down the court to Christian Laettner, dribbles once, turns, pivots, hits the shot. Duke wins by 1. What do you remember about that moment?
Well, to be quite frank with you, the elation, the joy that our group experienced, and Chris, right in front, I couldn't see Laettner's shot go in, but I knew it went in because everybody was jumping. Right in front of me, Richie Farmer, one of the great kids who played for Kentucky, collapsed right on the court. And I still get chills thinking of it because it was the agony and the ecstasy. And I went right away to Richie Farmer, and I think there was, we all took care of one another, but we all knew that we were in a moment in time, and we ended up winning that moment. But you know what? They did too, even though they lost the game. It was an incredible moment.
Take us into the timeout before that final play. What did you say to the players? And is it true that as you broke the huddle, you said, "We're going to win"?
Well, I was taught in the military that you speak to action, even if you don't believe something's going to happen. So when they hit a shot with 2.1 seconds, and you have to call a timeout at that time, the clock didn't stop. So our guys called a timeout, but they were at the other end of the court. And I met them as they were coming to the bench. And I was saying then, we're going to win. And I asked Grant Hill, can you throw the ball 75 feet? Now, we ran that same play a few weeks earlier at Wake Forest, and Grant Hill threw a curveball that almost hit a lady in the stands, not in the end zone, but on the side. So I was basically saying, can you throw it? And Grant will tell you that when he said yes, he felt like he already did it. And then Christian, I looked at him, I said, if I bring you up from the baseline, will you catch the ball? And we had a couple options. And he then, in only his unique way, because he's such a great competitor, he said, Coach, if Grant throws a good pass, I'll catch it. And I wanted to say, you promise? But and when we left the bench, I thought we had a chance. And that's what happens when you have that period of time that you are with. Look, we had a great team, and Grant did throw a great pass. Christian had the courage to take that one dribble to get good momentum, and then he hit it. And that shows you, though, Chris, how hard it is to win that tournament, because if he misses, we don't win our second national championship. And sometimes it's one play like that, not necessarily in the game for the championship, that puts you in a position to win. That's why I think it's the toughest tournament in sport to win.
As you mentioned, you not only have coached college basketball, you also coached the U.S. national team to 3 straight Olympic gold medals. How different was it coaching professional basketball players as opposed to college kids?
Well, different and great. I mean, both are great. When you're coaching in college, they're young men. I call it, you cross bridges with them of improvement, and you cross them together. With the U.S. team, they're grown men. They've crossed their bridges already. Now, can we cross one bridge together? Can we put all our egos under one ego umbrella and win a gold medal, and not just win a gold medal, but win the respect of our country and win the respect of the world while we're doing it. And those guys did that. They really bought into everything.
You, speaking of the NBA, you were approached, according to what I've read, 6 different times to coach in the NBA, including by a couple of teams pretty well known, the Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers. Why did you always say no, Coach?
Look, if you're a really good coach in any sport, you're going to be approached. So I'm not the only basketball coach that's been approached. At the end of the day, the way the college game was, I love the college game. I love being at Duke. I love crossing bridges with those kids, even if it was for only a year. And when I turned down the Laker job in 2005, like 3 months later, I was offered to be the first United States national coach. And that was my fix, so to speak. I loved coaching those guys.
You won 1,202 college basketball games, which is the most in history. What is the secret to coaching college basketball? Is it X's and O's? Is it motivation? And how do you take stars and role players and create a team?
Well, it's about relationships, relationships with talented kids who are good kids. In other words, they have character. The individual relationships that you and your staff develop with them is immense. I mean, and also it's so fulfilling. But then the relationship that you develop with your team, and that's different. But if you have the individual relationships, the other is a lot easier to attain. And then obviously you have to work hard, and you have to prepare. But Chris, I knew when I was 16 years old what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a coach and a teacher. And so, a lot of my buddies back in the inner city of Chicago said, "You've never worked a day in your life, knucklehead." And I said, you're right. And I've been able to do what I've loved my entire life.
This raises a question, which I was thinking about as I was preparing for this interview, whether any sports announcer will ever have the career that you have had. Let me put some stats up on the screen. You have called 11 Super Bowls, 8 World Series, 3 Stanley Cup Finals, 2 NBA Finals, and 9 Olympics. You're the only sportscaster to have broadcast the finals of the 4 major American sports. How do you explain it as objectively as you can? What do you think sets you apart at your job?
Number one, I came up in an era when cable was in its infancy, so the networks controlled pretty much everything. I happened to be at ABC at a time when we had every third Super Bowl, we had every other World Series, we had the NBA Finals, we had the Stanley Cup Finals. That's how I wound up there. Now, of course, it is so diffused because you've got all of these packages are a million different places.
You're kind of ducking my question, though, which is what makes Al Michaels Al Michaels. I kind of put you in the same category. I don't know. I think you'll be approve of this with Joe Buck and Jim Nance as the 3 great American sports broadcasters. First of all, do you feel any sense of competition with them?
No, not at all. In fact, both guys are great pals. And I think the 3 of us share a feeling that we are unbelievably lucky to have been at the top of the pyramid, certainly with the National Football League, and Joe with baseball as well. And of course, Jim Nance, the greatest, golf commentator of all time. We all talk about, man, we won the lottery. We do. We're very appreciative of it. So I think the one thing maybe for me is, as a kid, as a 6-year-old, I loved sports. And I think I have a feeling, and I still love sports, I know what the fan feels. And when I'm sitting there announcing a game, I'm looking at it as a broadcaster, but I'm also feeling it as a fan. My father took me to Ebbets Field when I was 6 years old in Brooklyn. We grew up within walking distance. And I walked in and I thought to myself, I want to be here every day, and I get in for free. And I want a job that enables me to do that, and I got that job. So I think I've always had a connection with the fan because I am a fan.
You made, without any question, one of the iconic calls in the history of sports, and that was the enormous U.S. upset beating the Soviets in the 1980 Winter Olympics.
The countdown going on right now. Morrow up to Cope. 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes!
Now, that's from the movie Miracle, which
Right.
was made about the American team's victory. I read somewhere that when they had you do the announcing for the movie, but when it came to that call, they pulled it from the original broadcast from 1980.
The sound editor, who'd won a couple of Academy Awards, didn't want to use a dirty track from 1980 when, of course, he could enhance it in 2004 and make it sound a lot better in terms of the quality. And at the end of the day, I refused to call the last 30 seconds of the game for him. So he tried to originally, it's a great story, he tried to bury it with music, and 6 nights before it premiered, we went to a special premiere. And one of the people in the theater was Michael Eisner, who was running
head of Disney.
running Disney at the time. And the lights came up, and Michael Eisner says to me, "Where's the line?" And I said, "Let me tell you what just happened. This guy blew me out with the..." And Michael says, "I'm getting on the phone right now. I'm calling the director, and I'm telling him, unless they fix it, the movie does not premiere next Friday."
So literally in the
Yes.
first cut of the movie, they didn't have you saying, "Do you believe in miracles?"
If Michael Eisner is not there that night, it's probably gotten blown away by the music swelling to the point you didn't hear what I said.
Obviously, there was no way you could have prepared for that because there was nobody who thought the U.S. was going to beat the Russians. How did that call come out? Do you remember?
Sure, because we're doing the game. I'm working in an intense state of concentration. And that game, remember, we trailed 1-0, 2-1, 3-2, came from behind 3 times. And what you had, too, is a situation where the Soviets outshot the U.S. 39-16. They dominated the game. They did. And then all of a sudden we take the lead with 10 minutes to go. Now it's complete bedlam. The place is going crazy. We're on a rickety platform that's shaking like crazy. The truck is going wild. I can feel people elbowing me, the technicians up on the platform. And then with a few seconds to go, like 6, the puck was able to come out to center ice. No time for the Soviets to mount another charge. No time for them to take another shot. And the word that came into my head was miraculous. And somehow it got morphed into a question and an answer, and I let it play. But that was me. That was from my heart, of my fiber. And also, Chris, I'm lucky in the sense, too, if you can't do that at the end of a Super Bowl because half the audience is going one way and half's going the other way. You can't do that in a regular game.
Right.
But this time, this is 99.999% of the audience.
There weren't a lot of people watching ABC.
They're going with you.
And rooting for the Russians.
Right. No, they were like 8 KGB agents somewhere in the Midwest, maybe. And it wasn't long after that I thought to myself, if I'm calling that game as the Soviet announcer and it's going back to Moscow, I might have said, do you believe in debacles?
Niet.
Yes.
So, obviously, there have been events that you could predict or were much more foreseeable. Somebody's way in the lead. Have you ever sort of prepared a signature call?
I haven't, because I feel if you do, it sounds scripted and stilted. And I think you just have to trust yourself to say what it is that comes into your head. Some codas are better than others. And there are times when I wish I might have said something better, different, memorable. But I've done so many games, you can't always hit a home run. So at least, you try to hit a double if you can. And of course, the strange thing about that game is if you had asked me what I said right after the game, I couldn't have told you. I was concentrating so hard on just calling the play-by-play and not screwing that part of it up.
Yeah, and over the years, you've worked with some great partners in the booth, none of them more colorful than the 7 years you spent with John Madden on Monday Night Football, then Sunday Night Football, but it wasn't always about football.
Oh, here's a picture of one.
Turducken.
Yeah.
Picture. That is it.
And you see, you cut it like right down here. See, and then this is what it looks like inside. See, so you got turkey, then duck, and then dressing, and then chicken.
Oh.
And then you just have to do it that way, or if any of that makes sense.
Now, can I get some hoisin sauce with that?
I love the fact that you brought up the Chinese restaurant. The
but of course.
Sauce. I'm sure you've got a million of them. What's your best John Madden story?
Well, there were so many things that, John was the kind of guy that, he would weigh in on everything. And some people probably thought he was a bit of an oaf because he had all the sounds going on and the booms.
Bang.
He was a tremendously well-read, well-educated man who was very much on top of everything. But John was a man who, didn't fly. And
he famously would take a bus across the country.
Across the country. And it enabled him to connect with people from all walks of life, from all areas of the country. And he was truly a man of the people.
Who's the greatest athlete you ever saw?
Well, I'm not old enough to remember Babe Ruth. But the greatest, it would depend. The sport, I think like Jerry Rice is the best football player I've ever seen. Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, best basketball player. Wayne Gretzky, the best hockey player, though there's a kid in Edmonton right now, Connor McDavid, who may eclipse Gretzky, I don't know. Baseball, I'll tell you what, Shohei Ohtani may be, I mean, he's Babe Ruth. He pitches and hits. We may be talking about the guy who's playing right now, who could be the greatest baseball player of all time by the time it's all said and done.
Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to CNN's YouTube channel so you never miss the best of my conversations. And you can catch the full interviews of Who's Talking streaming right now on Max.